Hey everyone. Currently, I'm working on an issue which is around providing visibility for shared runner usage for user namespace. And what I would really appreciate is some feedback around the process and approach that I'm following for the design proposal here. Um, I would start off with a brief background and context for the work that I'm doing, and that would account for the decisions that we have made in the process and why we have made the changes that we have. So today, if you go to your a group which is outside of GitLab.org and you go to Analytics, CI/CD, under Shared in a Usage, you'll see that you see a chart which is very similar to the charts that you see in your usage quota. Now, where is usage quota? It's under your group settings or your user namespace settings. So through this chart, what we're trying to show is not your CI minutes usage, but in fact, this is a very raw representation of how many uh, minutes you have exhausted on the shared runner that you're using. And it does not take into account your the cost factor that is applied to your project. So I would give an example here that let's say if you have created a public project after July 2021, that means you had a cost factor of 0.008 applied to your um, shared runner usage. Now, this will only show the duration that, hey, you have used it for 16,319 minutes. However, if you go to your usage quota, what it would do is it would multiply this number, 16,319, by 0.008, and the data that you get then is what you see here for CI minutes. So that's the difference. This is a very raw representation, and the decision for keeping this under analytics was to not to confuse our users and still give them visibility into their shared owner usage. So our thought was that if you place it very close to the usage quota details, then they would just be very confused that, hey, why am I seeing two very similar information? How are they different from each other? And it might even lead to some sort of major confusion. But as we are moving ahead with our work around the CI minute policies, something that we have under works is this, which is to harden CI limit for public projects. What it would mean is currently, if you created your public projects before July 2021, it would have unlimited CI minutes available. And after 2021, it would have a cost factor of 0.008 applied to it with a limit of, I think, 400 minutes. And now what we want to do is we want to bring the cost factor for all public projects, which are not public forks, to one. That means what you consume is what gets billed for, what you get billed for. So there, why am I stating this information is there'll be a time when this will represent something very close to this data. I mean, there wouldn't be such a huge gap between these two. Now, we started the work for showing the shared runner usage for the groups. And what we did not take into account was like and we did take into account, and we had planned for that in iteration, was to provide this for user namespace as well. So that let's say if I'm a user who does not use a group and is still interested in looking at how much of shared runner duration are my projects consuming, I should have a way to do that. So after having some recent discussions, our new conclusion was that the huge difference that we see in the shared owner usage and CI minutes consumption is going to like close in once we harden the limits. So there's no point having two dedicated pages for each. In fact, we can just maybe juxtapose this information over each other and uh, show them together to give an idea about runner usage in general. Now, when I created this first pass for the design for this particular issue, some very critical feedback that I received was Currently, it might happen that I'm consuming 1,000 minutes on the shared runner. But what I would actually get billed for is 1,000 multiplied by zero point zero zero 0.008, which is very less. So that means the difference between the scale for actual CI minutes and shared runner usage is going to be huge. And the graph might end up looking very odd because maybe it would be a huge patch covered with green and just a tiny like bump here with the shared of for the CI minutes usage, and that's not what we want. So I started to explore more, and one approach that I thought might work here until we have a good parity in both the data is maybe we can use tabs for the graphs, at least for now. So we can show CI minutes separately and shared in a duration separately. And when we show one at a time, we would not have to present both on a scale which could be unrealistic for the other. So we can just like change tabs and look at the other graph, what it looks like, and the legend would also change accordingly. And besides that, on the table, we don't have to like make any tabs for the table because we had enough space as is. So if you go to the usage quota for groups, I have it open. We have like a good amount of space in the table here, and we can totally accommodate the shared runner duration in the existing table. So I'm leaving that as is, but I'm proposing having two tabs for the chart that we are showing. Yeah, and I would be interested to know like if there's any other suggestion of a different way in which I could present these two information without making the UI very bulky or very confusing. And that's it. Thank you so much.